Here we are. Welcome, y'all. How are you doing?
Good.
How were holidays, people? Are we still? I was eating holiday baked goods as of yesterday, so I'm still kind of getting back in the swing.
Yeah, haven't quite gotten out of the cake for breakfast routine yet. I'll get there one of these days, though. It's gonna be
My,
good.
my rule, if it has cinnamon in it, it's a breakfast.
Well, it's a superfood then.
Yes, 100%. Hello, I'm Libby Magliello. I help folks build better slides. Eric, who are you?
Well, I'm Eric Harris, and I train leaders on storytelling for their high stakes presentations.
Today, we have a total delight of a guest with us. This is our first time repeat guest. He wants that five timers jacket so badly. Matt Smith, welcome. We're so excited that you're here.
So glad to be here. So glad I got invited back.
Oh, I mean, this is rarefied air that we're breathing here. So today we are talking about something near and dear to all of our hearts, sales presentations. And so we've talked about a bunch of different kinds of communications and presentations on our LinkedIn lives and how to tell our story in a bunch of different forums. Is it fora? Is that the plural of forum?
For I
Is that right?
no.
I was gonna fact check that later. That seems like something that would come up in the crossword puzzle or any of the New York Times games. We've talked about sharing your story both visually and verbally in different venues. I'll just kind of sidestep the forum comment. But today we're narrowing in on sales presentations and sales conversations specifically. So if you know Matt, you know that there is not a better person in the world to speak to about sales presentations. Eric, I know that you stayed up all night writing a really detailed, really intelligent question that you wanted to kick things off with. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it off to you.
Okay. All right. Well, let me check my notes. Matt, why do so many sales presentations suck?
Oh my gosh. The hard questions first. Why do so many sales presentations suck? The first reason is sales presentations suck because they're the focus of the meeting. A sales presentation shouldn't be the focus of the meeting. The journey that you're on with the potential client should be the focus of the meeting. So to that end, they shouldn't be they shouldn't be a primary focus at all. That's probably the biggest reason they suck. They're within sales presentations generally tend to be about the company or about the product or about the service. It's not about the client. And most sales presentations don't follow any kind of a regimented sales process. So those three things are between the placement of the sales meeting and what you have in them. That's why they're bad.
This is the wonderful thing about working for myself, because in my previous lives, I could never have said the word suck on a business professional conversation, but by damn, here we are. My business tagline unofficially is most presentations suck, yours don't have to. But I think I have my mom's voice in my head of what, if you say the word suck, you're basically going to live a life of crime and kind of go on the wayside of the law. So so Matt, I learned a lot from you in the times that we've worked together about the role that a presentation should play and the role that the presenter should play. So what does that look like in a sales conversation? What's the job of the account executive and what's the job of the sales deck?
Yeah. So the role of the account executive, I'm going to include the role of the client or the potential client in there. The potential client and the account executive are on a journey together. And what they're trying to do is solve some kind of a corporate puzzle, understanding the business, understanding the issues and opportunities of the business, attaching value to those issues and opportunities, and then determining a way forward. Those are the main characters, okay? The deck is a sidecar that's used for credibility, that's used to address complex questions or complex issues, or to provide proof points. Nothing more than that.
It's a supporting character, not the,
That's right.
not the main focus. Aaron said, I went to a college where you would get kicked out of the stadium if your shirt had the word suck on it. Aaron, you and I have lived very similar.
I know what college she went to as well.
I would love to sidebar and dig into that later. Yes, to get on my soapbox just for 1 second, people are a verbal medium and decks are by nature a visual medium. And so we should only ever be using decks for things that are said and communicated so much better verbally. People
Yep.
do not communicate trend data very well, but a data visualization can communicate that very effectively. So if it's
Great
going
example.
to be a verbal medium, or we are a verbal medium, and if we're going to use the visual medium, let's use it effectively and efficiently. So, okay, the supporting character, it is not there to be the focus of the meeting. So I know you run your own business and you have your own pitch deck. Some may call it the greatest design pitch deck that's ever been seen. If you want to know who designed it later, just get in touch. How do you use the sales deck in your own sales process when you're meeting with prospects? How does that come into play when you are trying to sell business?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you are right. I have an A+ pitch deck. If anybody wants to see it or wants to know who helped me put it together, just give me a call. She's really cool. So that's first, just a gratuitous plug. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think I've ever gone through, I know I haven't gone through my entire pitch deck with a potential client, like from start to finish. If I'm in conversations and I have the materials that, there for a prospect, and we're talking about certain things and there's certain proof points in the way of a case study or some of the process information I have in the deck, we'll go to it and we'll turn to it. But I don't ever intend to go through that pitch deck start to finish in person with someone. I just don't think it's appropriate. However, I do often send the deck to folks in advance.
Okay.
That gives them an opportunity to educate themselves on kind of what I do and how I do it. So that way they can understand me a little bit more. They can have questions about how I do certain things. And we can help move the relationship along a little bit faster. I find that that's effective. I also find sending the deck after the presentation with a specific call out to certain sections for them to review it serves as a nice reminder or clarification to the things that we talk about when we're in a meeting.
I love that, being very directive of, hey, here's exactly the information I want to point you towards, rather than just here's an info dump. One more question then, Eric, I promise I'll be quiet. Something I know we've all seen is a sales deck that's really, really long. And I understand the intention behind it, especially when you're trying to bring customer-specific, industry-specific data. You want to be seen as prepared. You want to be seen as having done your research and your work. And so there's tons of data. Maybe it's screenshots we took from a dashboard or screenshots that we took from a model. And I think the hope is, well, they're going to see how much data I pulled together for them. They're going to see how prepared I am for this meeting. Matt, what are your thoughts on that? Of, hey, there's tons of good stuff here, but I have a 35 page deck.
Yeah. So I think the first thing to know is to understand the clear difference between, a sales presentation and a sales deck and a performance review or an inform that's whether it's internal or external. There's time and place for, large quantities of information. I don't think, really intense data-driven decks have a part in a real, a legitimate sales conversation. To me, these are things that the person should know. I'm talking about the account executives. They need to know their stuff enough to be able to have cogent conversations with prospects around, key market intelligence, key trends, key data points. These are things that you need to know in the conversation. That's going to give you credibility. Yes, you can have, decks and information and, data and trends if you need to reference it to give them better context. But ultimately, these are things that you need to know on your own.
Absolutely. And I'm a big believer of the fact that when we are giving an audience a ton of information in a deck, we really are just passing our work along to them. And we're saying, hey, here's a ton of information. I really don't want to wade through it, but you can find the gems, find the good stuff in there, when in reality, like you said, we should know the information better than anyone. We should be able to curate that information on their behalf, knowing the things that they care about. Eric, I know we were chatting before about conversations and the role that sales conversations play. I know you had some thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, conversation is probably the second most often uttered word among sales teams, right? It's second only to conversion, the almighty conversion. But it's when you see a lot of sales processes that are designed around conversations and specific conversations that should happen at certain stages, and yet a lot of these meetings are designed in a way that they all but guarantee a monologue. What is happening? Why is that? And what can sales teams do to get out of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Two things come to my mind, Eric. I think number one, I see too many of these conversations that are not client centric at all. It is all about them, all about the company, all about the processes, all about what they do, all about how they get it done, all about, and it is, 25, 30 minutes of just talking about themselves. And the real goal is for this to be a jointly owned journey that you're on with a client to try to deliver commercial value. You can't do that if you're only talking about one of the parties. In fact, it should be absolutely reversed. So that's number one. Number two, I don't think people understand the sales process anymore, Eric. If you do some homework and look at social feeds or LinkedIn posts, et cetera, you don't see people really talking about how to have a high quality sales process driven conversation with an executive anymore. It's all about how to use AI. It's all about how to, improve conversion rate at, a third of the cost. It's all about everything other than when you get in front of the client, how can you together solve real business problems and deliver real commercial value? That's why I think they're not converting. That's why I think they're not turning into clients.
Yeah. Do you think they're like basically what salespeople are learning today is to prioritize efficiency and quantity over quality?
I think there's a belief, and there's some truth to it. I think there's a belief that the proliferation of information today, there is a belief that a lot of clients are going to learn and educate themselves on their own to the point to where it doesn't need a high quality sales process in order to drive a decision. And I think that is an absolute mistake. I think the proliferation of information today actually drives more confusion than it drives more education and decision making. And it's up to, a professional to help separate the wheat from the chaff as it relates to their business, to help them make the right decisions at the right time and give that executive the confidence on the decision that they're going to make and how they're going to go forward. So I think in some ways it's having a counterintuitive impact. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Information is cheap, but and I think what you mentioned is the reason that people don't know how to have a sales conversation anymore, because it's not as sexy of a proposition of AI and fill the top of the funnel and all that. There's no easy button on learning how to have a great sales conversation and to listen. It's about learning the principles and putting them into practice. We were chatting beforehand about, yes, everyone wants the AI that fills your calendar and gets you a million leads and whatever. But at some point you have to do something to convert those leads and have a conversation. But there's
Hey, Libby, can I make one comment on that?
Always.
And it gets to what you're talking about. You can sit down with a new account executive and teach them how to use a sales deck in 2 hours. Teaching them how to go through a very client-centric process to help them make a quantifiable decision takes far, far longer than 2 hours. So I don't want to call it lazy, but there's a little bit of an easy path, right? Okay, I'm going to teach this guy or this lady, this 15 slide or this 20 slide deck, and then go get it. Start making cold calls and let's see what happens. And the reality is What we do is much more sophisticated and complex than that.
Absolutely. Can you speak a little bit about, so the world has very much changed in the last 5-6-ish years, and we all have terrible Zoom fatigue and ring lights and everything horrible. Again, I'm wearing sweatpants on this call because the world has changed. But talk to me about your feelings of a virtual sales call, which I know we've all been on both sides of, versus an in-person sales call. You know, one is more convenient. What's your preference when it comes to virtual versus an in-person sales conversation?
Yeah, I wish I never had virtual sales conversations. I'm 10x better in person than I am on virtual calls, just because I'm able to get more of the nonverbals and the dynamic and read the room a lot better. Virtual calls, I mean, it's a way of life. I mean, hell, we're on one right now. My preference absolutely is in person.
So what happens if you are stuck on a video call? I remember a sales call where the deck was already up when I got on a call, and the first words were, a little bit about us, and here's the awards that we've won. We're actually founded back in 1984, and so we were going through the deck immediately. So how do we prevent that just information dump and sharing a screen immediately and going through the deck? There's got to be a better way. What's the better way?
Yeah. And what you just said is happening all the time, right? Yeah. That's, I would say 85 to 90% of them. My recommendation would be that you give yourself a goal, or that you give yourself a requirement that before you start talking about yourself, or before you go into your deck, that you got to accomplish a certain number of things in the conversation beforehand to earn the right. You have to know where they are as a business. You have to know, the key things that are keeping them up at night, or the key opportunities that they've identified. Jointly identify what value, what kind of value is associated with that, whether it be time or money or whatnot, and agree that solving that in whatever fashion or whatever way possible would be commercially beneficial for that business.
Mm-hmm.
That's discovery. And, I'm a strong believer that if you dive into, the pitch or the story or the whatnot before you understand them, and there's alignment around how we're going to move forward, all you're doing is showing up and throwing up.
Yes. Eric, I don't want to reveal a spoiler. Can you give us like the 30-second version of Lanyard Man?
Oh, yeah, of course. So, Lanyard Man is a story about you sitting at home on your couch in peak relaxation, and the doorbell rings, and you get the notification on your phone, and you can see in the video feed that the person on your doorstep is a young man wearing a bright blue polo, and he has a lanyard around his neck, and he's carrying a clipboard. And in that moment, what do? You really only have a couple of choices. Most of us run away when we are presented, when we're slammed into with information or idea, when we get the sensation that we're being sold to, most of us typically flee, and we try to avoid that at all costs. And yet here in most common sales presentations, Matt, you said 85, 95% maybe, we're just leading with information. We're just ringing the doorbell, wearing our lanyards.
The Lanyard Man has not earned the right to sell it to us. There's no relationship. There's no understanding of, oh, hey, I actually know that your neighbor down the street told me that you need this. It's just, hey, buy my thing. And I think that's the same feeling of the deck is already on the screen when we sign.
So did you buy the tops here, Eric?
No, but I saved 20% on my Wi-Fi bill.
I'm so proud of you. Fantastic. So I know that I've had folks say to me like, hey, I don't really have time to meet right now. Just send me your deck, just send me your materials, and I'll look at it and see if it's a good fit. Matt, if someone said that to you, said, can you just send me your stuff? Can you send me your materials? And I'll get back in touch if it's a good fit. Would you send it to them? What is your response?
No, I mean, it's doing neither them nor you any justice. They're not spending money on your deck. They would be spending money on you. So, my response would be Totally get it, Libby. Busy times. We're at the beginning of the year. How about this? I'm going to call you the second week in February and see how things are, and let's find some time to go get coffee.
Because the likelihood of me generating a sale from sending you my sales deck is very, very low. I'm assuming
It's a waste of time. In fact, it's worse than a waste of time. I think it makes the likelihood of you getting some kind of a meaningful conversation, I think it takes it down.
Yeah. Cheapens it.
Yeah.
Man, hot takes with Matt Smith. This is worse than saying suck on the phone. This is
everyone watching is clutching their pearls. They're like, what is going on here?
the hottest of hot takes. Matt, if you could get folks to do one thing differently, if they can be in person, wonderful. But if you can get folks to do one thing differently in their next sales conversation or their next sales presentation, what would it be?
Ooh. I would say give yourself that commitment that you're not going to go into presentation or tell mode or whatever you want to call it until you've accomplished a few things in a normal business conversation with them related to their business opportunities and the values of those opportunities. I think if you can practice and really take the time to get good at that, I would contend that maybe 60, 70% of the job's already done.
Yeah.
Because you know them, you know where you're trying to go, and assuming your product doesn't suck or assuming your service doesn't suck, then you guys are going to find a way forward.
Okay. I like it. I think that's doable and attainable, and both parties will be happier as a result. We have questions from the crowd. This is very exciting. Matt, your fan club has showed up in full force. We have a question from Alex Harris from Southwest Airlines, who is now over at American. So Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Hello. So his question is, in terms of furthering existing partnerships, how do you balance a performance review versus being forward-looking and working to get additional business?
Ooh, that is a killer question. So Alex, here's what I would probably think about. I think number one is if you truly see an opportunity to expand or grow with a client, and you know the path, in that performance review, I would probably structure an executive summary at the beginning that clearly calls out what you're seeing from a performance standpoint, the opportunity and the value that you see in that opportunity, and let them know that I'm clearly going to be asking you to move forward with something like this. So I think that's number one. I think number two would be, in performance reviews, they tend to be pretty data heavy. In the structure of the deck, I would be really, really overt at calling out those trends or the causal information in the performance that says, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for you to cut cycle time. This is an opportunity for you, Alex, in your situation, for you to spend less money on the route from SFO to Denver. That would be how I would structure that. You don't want to lose the principle of the performance review, but if you see opportunities to help them in one way or another, you owe it to them to discuss it in the performance review.
Alex,
yeah, and I want to add to that just really quickly, because I think this is a great opportunity for a classic storytelling formula, looking back, looking forward. And if you have an opportunity with an existing client, there's so much to be gained by basing future recommendations on the performance of the past. And if you can say, this is where we've been, this is where we're going, it grounds them in the decisions that they're about to make or that you're asking them to make. So to look back in with one eye also facing forward is a great way to kind of frame up what those performance reviews can lead to in terms of organic growth.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. We appreciate the question. And, if you ever have free flights that you want to throw our way, we're very cool, casual travelers. They always show up.
Or pretzels. I like pretzels too.
Yes. My girls are young enough that they call them pretzels, and I don't have to correct them because it's the sweetest thing ever. I love pretzels. Very quickly, I have another question. If you do have other questions in the chat, please throw them in there. Matt, I kind of want to ask the 4 sauces question, but I'm going to table that just for a second and get back to them. 3 liquids, 4 sauces. But if you know Matt, you know that question well. Real quickly, I want to plug, Eric and I have a webinar coming up in about a month that we're super excited about called Storytelling for Sales. The first half of it, we're going to be focused on the storytelling frameworks that you can use, rinse and repeat in your sales conversations that will transform them. And then the second half, we're going to be talking about sales presentations that don't suck, how to create a sales deck that supports and doesn't take over your sales call. So we will drop that link in the comments. We would love for you to sign up, and we would love to see you there. So beyond the 4 sauces and 3 liquids question, maybe I'll just leave that out there as a teaser, and people will be.
Maybe if I earn it, maybe we spend some time on that if I earn a 3rd time.
Oh, I love that.
There you go.
The whole the question is leaving my head. I can feel the oh no, I got it back. I could feel the thread of it. So Matt, when I think about especially more of a QBR type deck, a performance review deck that is a little bit more data centric, I think about information in a couple different categories. There's the information that's so vital that we put it on the slide. Hopefully we visualize it. There's the information that I don't put on the slide, but I add verbally. And there's my backup information that I have in the appendix. I've never worked with somebody who comes as prepared to any meeting as you do, and you certainly have a long list of information you are ready to share. So how do you think about that distinction of what is so important for them to know that it has to go on a slide? What do I add verbally? And then what maybe doesn't make the cut and gets stuck back in the appendix?
Yeah, this is a good one, and it's not an easy one to answer, concisely. I'll tell you kind of what's on my mind. The way I think about that kind of stuff, Libby, is I start with the outcomes or the outputs or the end, whether it's a goal or a performance or whatnot, and I try to work backwards. Okay, and in working backwards, what you generally learn is, whether it be KPIs, triggers, whatever, you start to see the story around what is influencing what. And if it's a performance review, what I'm looking for is what data tells a causal story that highly influences the outcome, right? That's the stuff that executives are going to want to know, because they will then ask, what is driving that causality, or what's driving that change, and what can we do to either eliminate it or accelerate it? And so in working backwards, that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those key elements. Are generally data driven, that it's not just, correlated, or it's not just an interesting number, but there's a causality that's driven by some kind of an input. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's how I think about it for performance reviews. For sales presentations, I would probably say I wouldn't go that direction. I would probably follow Eric. And what I would probably do is turn it into some kind of a case study or a story that makes it easy for people to understand how the journey happened. You can put some numbers and statistics with it, particularly the outcomes. But I would probably lean doing that if it was an actual sales presentation.
I love that, beginning with the end in mind. We have one more question from the crowd. Aaron would like to know, what is your playbook? What is your go-to when you have a quiet audience in a sales conversation? They're not giving you a whole lot. What do you do? What's your go-to tactic?
Yeah, so there a couple of things. Number one, I tend to be pretty blunt. So what I may do is, I may just ask some very provocative questions to the folks that are either not engaging. I should know my audience. I should know their role. I should know their background. So I should have the ability to ask a question that is relevant to either their role, background, or what their objectives are within the meeting to draw them out. I think another thing that you can do, and I'm going to steal from Eric again, is, tell a story of people like them. Maybe there's something of, I was having a conversation with the chief operating officer at a business in this industry. It's not exactly similar to you guys, but it's something similar. some interesting things came up as we were talking, blah, 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 blah. Knowing that you do this and you're focused on this, I'd be interested in your take. So using something like that to try to get to get it going. I think I generally take a lot of accountability in making sure that there's engagement in the discussion. If it's only me talking or only a couple people talking, I'm not doing my job as helping the group solve the puzzle.
I love that. Matt, thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us today. We are so thrilled to have you back. We are 2/5 of the way to the 5 timers jacket. So, you know, we're going to get there. You get a free sub and a jacket punch card. But again, we'll drop the link to our webinar. We would love to see you there in the comments. But Eric, Matt, thank you both so much for your time. It was so wonderful to talk to you both.
Thank you, guys.
Y'all.
Thanks everyone for joining. We appreciate it. Talk to y'all later.
Bye, everyone.